Well, great. Well, we're really glad you are here. So please get yourself comfortable because we're going to be here a little while and we're going to have a fun day. All right? We're so glad you're here. The students of Floyd County are our special guests today, and so I'd like to begin by giving them a shout out and recognize their participation. From Charles City Schools, we have Principal Josh Johnson here to introduce his delegation.
We have a couple rows here of sophomore American Humanities class. 35, 37 sophomores.
Well, thank you for being here. It was my pleasure to stop up at the high school yesterday and give a brief comments to some of the history and humanities class. I really enjoyed that. From the Immaculate Conception School, we have or will have 19 sixth grade students who are here with Mrs. Brown.
Welcome the invitation. Happy to be here and participating. I've got 2 rows. We'll have another row and a half. They're coming from another function, and my 2 readers.
All right, thank you for being here, Immaculate Conception School. From Red Rockford Marble Rock School, we have the student council of the 7th and 8th grade. Is Mrs. Ewan here?
Yep. Ian Ewan, and I have 6 7th graders, and I have 6 8th graders from our junior high student council.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. Central Schools Middle School in Norris Springs regrets that they could not attend today's event. Mr. Adam is the social studies teacher there, Adam Hines, and they're taking tests. They've had a lot of school days, so they can't be here, so we'll miss them. There are a number of elected officials and appointed officials who I'd like to introduce to you all today. First of all, we have County Attorney Rachel Ginby here. County Auditor Gloria Carr. County Recorder Deb Roberts. County Sheriff Rick Lynch. I believe Chief Deputy Sheriff Jeff Crooks is here. County Treasurer Frank Ridinghouse. County Supervisor Roy Swickerat. And the clerk of the Floyd County District Court, Julie Cannell. Thank you all for being here and participating in today's event. One person who couldn't be here is Rhoda McCartney. Rhoda McCartney is the wife of former State Senator Ralph McCartney, whose remarks students will be reading from later in the program. She also sends her regrets. She's a bit under the weather, but she's looking forward to spring, and she's going to be, she's very happy to have us host this event here in the courtroom. Rhoda McCartney is a leader in her own right, and we've had a couple of very interesting conversations this past week. Rhoda and I are already busy planning what will be a 3rd Floyd County observance of a famous person in January of 2017. I'm only going to give you one clue as to what is being planned. 19. The number 19. You know, I was asked recently, why does Floyd County host students at events like this? It's because we want you, the students of Floyd County, our future leaders, to understand why we honor and the values and principles of these great Americans, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and President Abraham Lincoln. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce County Treasurer Frank Ridinghouse.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Frank Ridinghouse. I've been the Floyd County Treasurer for some time now, and I'm honored to introduce our speaker today. Grant Veeder and I became appointed at the University of Northern Iowa, where I received a degree in business management and he a degree in English. Years later, my election as treasurer and his election as Blackhawk County Auditor, we would cross paths a couple of times each year, usually at meetings sponsored by the Iowa Association of Counties. Grant furthered his education by earning a master's degree in history in 1979. I'm guessing this may have what may have been what triggered his interest in Abraham Lincoln. Grant was appointed as a member of the Iowa Abraham Lincoln Bicentennial Commission that organized and executed Iowa's commemoration and celebration of our 16th President's 200th birthday in 2008 and 2009. Grant has utilized both of his degrees in recent years, having written a series of articles, including Lincoln in Iowa, Lincoln in the Constitution, and Lincoln the Lawyer. Grant has become a recognized expert on President Lincoln and is a featured speaker at events like this one today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Grant Veeder.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Mark, and thank all of you for being here. It's a great honor for me to be given the privilege of speaking on the occasion of dedicating a portrait of Abraham Lincoln being put up next to his Emancipation Proclamation in the Floyd County Courthouse. And I'm very appreciative of the large crowd here that apparently was bussed in from schools all over the area. Kind of makes me feel like one of those presidential candidates who pay for people to be at their campaign rallies. But if you want to be paid, you're going to have to talk to my super PAC. The Emancipation Proclamation is on the wall downstairs with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. They aren't really very similar companions. I have to remember to put my slides here. I might need help. Let's try this. By the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. You get a real visceral feeling about the need for justice. You don't really get the same feeling when you hear Lincoln say, "Now therefore I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, by virtue of the power in me vested as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States in time of actual armed rebellion," blah, 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 blah. It's pretty boring stuff. And not only is it boring, but you know what? It didn't even free all the slaves. Now, this is the act during the American Civil War that we remember as freeing the slaves for all time in the United States. But if you can stay awake long enough to read very far in the proclamation, you get to where he lists off a bunch of southern states where the slaves will be free. He doesn't list all the slave states. You can see on this map, it says the targeted slave states. It's most of them, but not all of them. There's even some parts of states that are excluded because it's only supposed to apply to those areas that were in rebellion against the United States. And not all the slave states were rebelling. And some of them had parts that were already under Union control. So we call Lincoln the great emancipator. But if he didn't free all the slaves, what should we call him? The semi-great emancipator? Or the mediocre emancipator? I don't want you to get me wrong. I think that Lincoln is a great American, maybe the greatest. But he wasn't a great abolitionist. For most of his life, he acted like abolitionist was a dirty word. Even though he opposed slavery, he thought, like lots of people did at that time, that abolitionists who wanted to end slavery immediately were doing the anti-slavery cause more harm than good, because they were so radical. People like Lincoln thought that slavery should be ended gradually. That's how it worked in the northern states. They were part of the original 13 colonies. Did you know all the states, both north and south, had slavery at one time? And out of the 7 northern states that abolished slavery, out of the 7 states that abolished it, 6 6 of them did it gradually over a long period of time. They started around 1800, and like in New York, all the slaves weren't freed until 1827. In Pennsylvania, it wasn't until 1847. In New Jersey, they had slaves until 1865, when all of the slaves were freed. So Lincoln thought it should be the same in the South. He supported gradual emancipation.